Today I'm joined with former professional jumps jockey and media extraordinaire now, Alan Johns. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Yeah, it's got a nice setup in here, so I'm quite impressed. First impressions are good.
Good. So you're obviously at Cheltenham this week. Talk us through your work that you picked up and how you went.
Yeah, so it was my first Cheltenham as a former jockey. So I retired in April of last year, and I had a few different bits of bobs. Obviously, the Cheltenham Festival's 4 days. I did 2 days working for the racecourse on the racecourse TV, so on the big screens, previewing racing. Beforehand, I was in early one day to go down and see the Irish horses canter in the morning, in the middle of the track. So interviewed Willie Mullins for the first time. So it was a bit of a sort of quite exciting moment for me. And then I did a day for ITV Racing social media. So just pretty trivial stuff, but so I had some good interviews with jockeys and things, so that was good. And then I had another day where we chatted off here that I didn't have any work for the Tuesday, so I put a tweet out saying any work going. Took the mick out of myself a little bit to sort of break the ice on it, so I didn't get completely ghosted. And then picked up a few bits of work on the Tuesday. Yeah, so it was a busy week. I'm not used to actually wearing a suit for 4 days running, so I think that was part of the reason. I actually felt quite tired at the end of it, but good to be there. I'd have been gutted to miss it. So yeah, it was a great week. Yeah,
and how does that differ to obviously being a jumps jockey, being there for the meetings? How does it feel for you being the other side of the microphone for a change?
Yeah, well, with the Cheltenham Festival specifically, I never had a winner there, and I rode, I think at the best finishing position I had was a 5th, but I rode lots of outsiders there, particularly in the last few years where the Irish dominance has come to the fore more. I heard James Bowen say it, actually, I thought it was quite a nice way of putting it. Until he had his first winners there this year, he felt like a spare part being there. So as a jockey going there with horses haven't got a chance, you sort of convince yourself they have a conceivable chance because you've got to go into the competition thinking you can win, and then when they do run to exactly how they objectively should run, you'll then feel downbeat because you think you'd convinced yourself they had a chance. So and then elsewhere, I think to be there working for the 4 days and in my new capacity, felt a bit more fun. Like I would swap what I was doing with what Paul Townend did, don't get me wrong, but because my career plateaued a little bit and I wasn't going to be riding Cheltenham Festival winners, I'd way rather coming round to it and being like a proper fan of the sport. Obviously, I'm sort of working in the media in the sport now, but through that lens, it means that, it's quite an exciting time. So, enjoyed it all.
Yeah, and talking about, you're going back to where it all started, how did you get into the sport yourself, and what age were you when you first jumped on the back of a horse?
Yeah, so it was probably before I had the cognition to say whether I actually wanted to ride horses or not. I just plonked on the back of a pony by my mum, sort of told, you will enjoy this, boy. Obviously against my free will, but that's just, very 90s move there. But so like most jockeys, you tend to just start riding ponies at a young age. You get into it. And it's a very natural path, actually, for a sport that is... gets spoken about the nepotism and the connections in the sport. It's actually a real meritocracy in many ways, becoming a jockey. Those connected to sons of trainers and whatever do have a leg up, but there's nothing that stops someone from outside the sport coming in and having success in it. So for me, rode ponies, did lots of different competing, show jumping and different things like that. Then at 17, so I was quite late, I went to work for a racehorse trainer, went to work for Peter Bowen, so Sean and James's dad, because they're down the road from me. And then it just goes from there, riding in point-to-points, the amateur form of the sport. And then you learn as you go. And eventually I was working for Tim Vaughan and turned professional for him then. It's very much a step-by-step process. It's quite natural to follow. So that's how I got into it. I'm from a horsey background, but not a racing background. So sort of made my own way in the sport. Yeah,
and obviously you spoke about Tim Vaughan there. How big of a role did he play on your career? You were a retained jockey for about 11 years.
Yeah, huge, really. I was slow to get going. I left out a few gaps there. I basically did my A-levels and did a year of racing. Then I went travelling, went to uni, and then decided to go into the racing. So I was quite far behind compared to a lot of other jockeys when I was sort of turning professional or having those first rides and winners under rules. And he had a huge impact. I think his views on life and getting on in the world, I found quite inspiring when I was there. He's a real sort of go-getter sort of, can't think of it's got to be a
He's
better
a character,
phrase.
really.
Yeah, he's a character, and he's a character 24/7. So he doesn't just come alive in front of camera or something like that. He's literally all day, every day. He's just got an energy towards life, and I definitely soaked that up, and that definitely helped me go from a crap jockey to a moderate jockey. It took that big step, you know.
Yeah,
that was a little joke there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and talking about like going behind the curtain a bit and looking at the reality of being a professional jockey. A lot of people don't realise A, how hard a job it is, and B, the sacrifices along the way you have to make. Obviously, you're up and down the country working a lot of riding horses a lot of days of the week. What is the reality of being a professional jump jockey?
Yeah, so you're busy. You're always looking to that next ride. You're checking your phone every day to see declarations for the race meeting in 2 days' time. I would have spent a lot more time in the car than on horseback. Most jockeys are up early in the morning going to exercise horses for racehorse trainers to build those relationships to then ride them in the afternoons when they go to the races. So yeah, it's a grind in many ways. Like most jobs, though, do you know what I mean? Everybody's chipping away and just got to grind away at times. And I think the difference is that at the end of it all, you actually get a good result. You get a winner, you get success, you get these sorts of things. So the reward is more than just your monthly pay. It's, having, winning at sport that's on TV is quite a nice reward at the end of it. So I'd say it's 90% grind, and you're losing 80 or 90% of the time, basically. So you're having, if your average is, 10% strike rate, so you're winning on 1 in 10 horses. The very best who are riding the very best horses for the best connections, that'll go up to 20-25%. But then you're still losing on 75 rides out of 100. So we get very good at losing. We get very good at switching from one race to the next. If it's half an hour later, put that behind you, move on, because you've got to do the physical job. You've got to debrief, run in, get changed in your colours, way back out, give it to the person who's saddling the horse, go back in, sort everything out. So like you've just got to bang, bang, bang. So like you haven't really got time to dwell too much either. So, but that's just the system, and it's not that glamorous a lot of the time, but it's good fun some of the time as well. Yeah,
and obviously, well, we'll talk about that day at Ffos Las, the last race you ever rode, and won on your last time. How try and sum up that day of your retirement?
Yeah, it's gone down in Welsh racing folklore, I'd say now. No, so it was. I knew I was going to be retiring for a number of months before I did. I'd even a couple of years really. I'd sort of knew roughly when I'd be finishing, and in the month or 2 or 3 months leading up to it, I was trying to coordinate things so I could finish on a winner. And the typical scenario for most jockeys, unless you're AP McCoy or Frankie Dettori, which I'm not, is that you wait till you have a winner and then you announce your retirement. So you might sort of wait a fortnight and go to the races 5 times, not have a winner, and then you eventually ride a winner, and then in your post-race interview say, that's me done. But I did it slightly the other way around. So I picked out a horse that I was pretty sure I could win on. A lot of things could go wrong and he could still win. Of which a couple of the things did go wrong in the race eventually. So I planned my retirement, and I had my friends and family there at Ffos Las. So I'm from West Wales, so that's sort of halfway towards home from here in Cardiff, where I live now. And yeah, coordinated. I had 4 rides in the day. I knew the others didn't really have a chance. And then finished on a horse called Bumpy Evans, who's a bit mad, to be honest. And so I didn't take anything for granted either. So as a jockey, you're always you're never that far away from injury or falls, and he is a horse who you would say there's a good chance I'm going to fall off this horse and hurt myself. So it kept me fairly focused on the day now, even with all my friends and family there. And it was. I announced it in the morning. There was a good buzz there on the day, and like they were going to let me win. And of course, in reality, it doesn't work out like that at all. James Bowen, this horse likes to go off in front on his own, and the worst thing for a horse like that is to have another horse who wants to do exactly the same thing. So James Bowen came up to me at the start and said, sorry Al, but I'm going to go flat out here. So that sort of scuppered my plans a bit. And then James Best, another jockey, was eventually the jockey who was upsides me from the last of the line, and he wants to win more than any other jockey, I'd say. He's very vocal. He screams and shouts, and he's like, he's fairly revved now. And then eventually crossed the line. There's a clip of on a phone of when we crossed the line. As a jockey, you get very good at switching from game mode to afterwards. And as soon as we crossed the line, he's like, "Oh, well done, Johnsy, delighted for you." And like the cameras picked that up, and it eventually went online. And quite a few people sort of commented like, "Oh, typical like racing's bent," basically. But like 30 yards before the line, he was absolutely roaring to like motivate himself and his horse, really. So it was good way to end. And yeah, I actually reflect, I had some nice winners in my career, but like that was definitely the most fun I had in a race course in my career.
Yeah, and if you look back at your career retrospectively, what would have been bar that day? What would have been your favourite ever horse you've ridden and race you've ever ridden in? Yeah,
well, I suppose a horse I probably had a lot, was probably one of the best horses I rode, was a horse called Ffos Las, who I eventually rode in the Grand National. Didn't complete on that occasion, but won some nice races on him. Won a big handicap chase at Cheltenham, which is probably the best race I won as a jockey. And there was a horse early in my career called Buck in the Trend, who he wasn't particularly. He was a solid level. He was a good, he was a nice horse, but he's not the sort of horse that would get spoken about years after the event. But he was just when I was starting out, he was such a cool horse, such an intelligent horse to ride, and gave me some of the best sort of experiences riding around a race course, because he just jumped so well. He was so intelligent. He just measured his strides 20 yards from the jump, and then when you got there, you just jump out of your rhythm sort of thing, rather than having to shorten or take off on a long stride. So like at an early stage of my career, that was a horse where I thought, Jesus, this can be easy.
Is that the bit you miss most about it? If I was to say to you, do you miss it? Obviously, you'd probably say yeah, but what parts of it do you miss, and are you happy with your sort of new role? Yeah,
I don't miss much, to be honest. I'm probably someone who moves on in life, I'd say. I don't tend to dwell on the past too much. I was quite lucky in many ways, because I finished riding, I was very ready to stop, but I was still enjoying riding up to my last day. So a lot of jockeys are either bitter that they have to stop through injury or things aren't going for them, or they wanted to stop a couple of years earlier, but they've kept going because whatever, they didn't know what else to do or whatever. So I was quite happy with it. I was enjoying it till the end, and then haven't looked back since, really.
Yeah, and moving on, obviously you said about your retirement. How early in your career did you know that media was the route you wanted to go down? Obviously, I know you started posting as you were sort of coming up towards retirement, but yeah.
I've gone through my whole life really not knowing what I was going to do as an adult, if that makes sense. Even when I was started in racing, I didn't really see that as a long-term thing. And eventually I sort of settled on racing, spent 12 years as a jockey. And it was only the last 2 years before I retired that I started in the media. It was actually when I rode Ffos Las in the Grand National. That's when it sort of started. We got a lot of media attention because wasn't many British runners. We were slightly different because we hadn't had sort of loads of runners in the race previously, and it was a grey horse. So got a lot of media attention leading up to it, and I decided that I wanted to like just have a bit of fun with it, really. I just crack one joke for my own enjoyment. And that actually just changed how I approached media and talking about racing altogether, because I just went into it lighthearted. And from there, I then I helped organise a charity race for Christian Williams, his daughter, a racehorse trainer. She had leukemia at the time. She's only 6 or 7, and she's recovered now. And they wanted to put on a charity race for the Welsh jockeys, and they wanted to market that. So I decided to organise like a piss take sort of promotion video about how seriously all the Welsh jockeys are taking this race. And that was quite different in racing. I was a bit nervous when it came out, thinking, geez, have I missed the mark here? But that was really well received. And then quite quickly things snowballed from there then. And it's always been a part of my personality. It's just that I never really my personality has come out eventually in media. I've always liked trying to make people laugh, never taken myself too seriously, and always had that in me. But I never saw that as a potential to turn that into something when I started riding, to go alongside, hopefully talking intelligently about the sport as well, hopefully at times. So it was only when those couple of things happened within a couple of months of each other, and I started to get attention or work from that I thought, oh gosh, I could actually I actually push in this direction now. And then from there, I've pursued it quite well, with plenty of intent, really.
Yeah, and looking into the future, where do you see the pinnacle of what you want to get to, and if you could, where will you end up?
Yeah, so I'd love to be on ITV racing. I think that's a goal of mine. I'd like to do a bit of Sky Sports racing, covering the Welsh tracks perhaps as well, and then bits and bobs around that within racing. So like once, because you need to then be so across the racing, if you're in one of those roles, then it makes other income streams or other bits of work quite easy around the side. So you do the form study once, and then you can use that in different places, basically. So that's one way. I also do. I'm quite keen to push my own profile on social media still quite a lot. And it's surprising there's bits of work coming in that aren't necessarily related to racing on that front. And then another little thing I've got is I do social media management for a couple of jockeys. I do Sean Bowen and James Bowen, and I do a couple of other racing things that I've quite enjoyed doing that. I've grown there. I was looking yesterday. I think I've doubled Sean's following on Instagram in less than a year, and James had quite a small base, but he's gone from 5,000 to nearly 20,000 followers.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in.